Dangerous, very dangerous, because if Anthony Joshua hits him on the chin, he will put him to sleep.
Utter madness that he would run the risk of absolutely jeopardizing his life, because he's not a big heavyweight. He's a small heavyweight. He's 5 inches smaller than Joshua.
This is a real fight. It should be over in 90 seconds because Anthony Joshua is a legit gold medalist, super heavyweight, crazy athlete, awesome power, and Jake Paul just isn't on that level in any way. And he's not he's undersized.
Boxing pros warn that Jake Paul is stepping into extremely dangerous territory by facing Anthony Joshua. They argue that Joshua's knockout power is on a completely different level and that Jake has never experienced anything close to it. Many experts believe the matchup pushes safety limits and could end badly if Joshua lands clean. Gareth A. Davies also cautions that it is improper to let them have a full-on fight due to...
As I am with you, there is a danger in this fight. The odds are... Joshua's 1-12, obviously. Jake Paul is 6-1, yeah, to win this fight in a 2-horse race in which... This is a guy who lost to Tommy Fury, Tyson Fury's brother, in an 8-round fight, who, for me, I wrote that it would damage his legacy a week ago. It will damage his legacy for several reasons. If the Deontay Wilder fight never emerges, which it looks like it isn't, I've been calling for that fight for ages. If those two got in a ring together, it's still a massive fight. It's a dangerous fight to sanction, in my view. Sets the wrong precedent. It is 10-ounce gloves. It is a boxing match. It's not an exhibition. This isn't a 58-year-old Mike Tyson. This is one of the most dangerous finishers in the world, who is probably 5 levels above Jake Paul and a weight division above him. I think it's irresponsible to let those two in a ring together in a proper boxing match. That's my view. It doesn't damage his bank balance, but if he earns $70 million for this.
McQuiggan's explosive criticism captures the fear many seasoned boxers feel when they imagine Jake Paul standing across the ring from Anthony Joshua. McQuiggan spent decades around heavy hitters and understands how power changes everything once the first punch lands. He argues that Jake is stepping into something far beyond entertainment, far beyond influence or boxing, and far beyond the level where athletic confidence can save someone. Joshua's knockout power is not theoretical. It is proven against men much bigger, stronger, and more experienced than Jake. McQuiggan highlights that Jake is still essentially a light heavyweight and has never fought anyone whose natural weight, reach, and punch damage compare remotely to Joshua.
It's a freak show. Some people are saying, AJ's grabbing the bag. There's nothing wrong with that, because anybody else, if they got offered that kind of money, they would do it. So, yep. And some people are suggesting it might damage his legacy. Where do you sit with the decision of him taking that fight? And it's a professional 8-round fight as well.
Yes, it's a highly dangerous fight for Jake Paul. I don't know what he's doing, unless they have done some sort of caveat or some sort of agreement that he says he's going to go easy on him, or he's not going to go flat out. But I've been tossing this up and down in my mind and trying to figure how, and under God, when he had agreed to fight someone like Tank Davis, who is several divisions below him, that's more like what Jake Paul does, and then he goes from there to fighting Anthony Joshua. I mean, just look at what happened to Francis Ngannou, who's a big, athletic, tough guy and had gone 12 rounds with Tyson Fury and given him a real ding-dong. And then he gets absolutely obliterated in a round and a half against Joshua. That shows you, despite the fact that he's been knocked out since by Daniel Dubois, who could knock out anybody, by the way, in any weight division or in any era of the heavyweight division. He's such a powerful guy. He could knock anybody out if he hits them properly. But it just seems utter madness, and utter madness.
From his perspective, Jake is not walking into a competitive match, but into a collision with a fighter built to demolish top-tier heavyweights. The size gap is only part of the risk. The level of punching intelligence, timing, and destructive force Joshua delivers through short shots, uppercuts, and counters is something Jake has never even trained against. Mquigan's frustration comes from watching people downplay the danger, as if the ring suddenly becomes safe because Jake has social media confidence or previous wins. For him, this matchup is less about hype and more about human vulnerability.
An agreement of some kind where he says, I won't go hard on him, or I'll go easy, or I'll spar with him for 8 rounds, because it's just so ridiculous. I mean, if Joshua hits him properly, he'll knock him unconscious. And if he knocks him unconscious and he gets a bleed in his brain and he ends up with a subdural hematoma and goes to hospital and is in dire straits, where does that leave boxing? That puts us in a very, very awkward spot. So it's hard not to believe that they've got some sort of caveat, some sort of agreement whereby, I mean, most heavyweights box with 10-ounce gloves or sometimes 12-ounce gloves.
Dave Allen's perspective focuses less on hype and more on historical patterns from Jake Paul's previous fights. He notes that Jake has built his boxing record through matchups where both sides walked away financially satisfied and physically safe. The environment was controlled, the matchmaking was strategic, and the danger level was carefully moderated. But Allen believes this scenario is entirely different because Anthony Joshua is not a celebrity boxer, nor a retired athlete, nor a cruiserweight playing along for a paycheck. Joshua is an active heavyweight with a championship pedigree, knockout victories over elite opponents, and a history of finishing fights with brutal efficiency. Allen warns that if Joshua chooses to fight Jake with even half the intensity he uses against professional rivals, the result will not resemble Jake's previous controlled bouts. The danger here is not just a knockout. It is the potential impact of heavyweight force on a fighter whose body has never absorbed anything close to that magnitude. Allen also points out that even sparring with heavyweights does not prepare someone for the real fight environment where punches come without warning, without pulling back, and with full commitment. For Jake, stepping in with Joshua is stepping into real heavyweight warfare, not a promotion-friendly crossover event.
But he couldn't beat Tommy. Could he win the area lightweight title? I'm not sure. Don't know who the champion is. If I had a look, I could tell you, but I'm not sure. He then boxes Nate Diaz. So he's boxed 1 boxer so far, if we keep in count, and he's beat none. Then he boxes Andre August, who I believe was a pro, and this is now at 14-3, so he's now actually a cruiserweight. Andre August, I'm not sure. Ryan Borland, 17-2. Again, I'm not sure. But fair play, he's beat 2 boxers here. Beat 2 boxers, what can I say? He then fights Mike Perry, who is an MMA fighter, bare knuckle boxer. He's not a glove boxer. He then fights Mike Tyson, which was an exhibition, weren't it, really, for all intents and purposes. Now, the big jump here is in 4 months, he's put on 2 stone. So he's put on 2 stone in 4 months. He then boxed Julio Cesar Chavez, and he's now lost 2 stone. He's back down at 14-3, and he beat Chavez, who is a boxer, but has been shot to bits for the last 10 years. So, as far as Jake Paul goes, I don't mind Jake Paul. I don't really know what he does or what he is and what he's achieved in boxing. I would say fair play. I'd say, you know what, mate? Why not? I don't blame him. And the money he's made, amazing, buzzing. If people want to watch him box, great. So he started off boxing, I think a YouTuber or 2, basketball player maybe, was he? Some MMA fighters, and he weren't Ngannou, weren't Cyril Gane, weren't Big Madu can box. He was boxing welterweights, middleweights, max, way past the best. But that's also fine because it's an entertainment game and it's okay. That's fine. Loses to Tommy, fights a few pro boxers, and then fights Mike Tyson, which was a professional contest, but for all intents and purposes, a bit of an exhibition because To be fair to Jake Paul, he could have flattened Mike Tyson at any time. People say Mike Tyson held him up, he held back. If anyone was holding back, it was Jake Paul. Jake Paul could have flattened him.
Some analysts argue that the danger is not limited to Jake. Anthony Joshua also carries a significant risk entering this matchup. They stress that if Joshua wins but does not dominate flawlessly, the victory may be interpreted as a stain rather than an achievement. For a fighter of his status, reputation is shaped by how decisively he beats opponents, not simply that he wins. If Jake lands even one clean punch, critics could weaponize it as evidence that Joshua is slipping or losing sharpness. They explain that if Joshua wins but does not dominate clearly, the victory may be interpreted as a negative rather than a positive. They add that if the fight becomes messy or unexpectedly competitive, Joshua could face embarrassment that cascades into public doubt, especially given the unpredictability of boxing. Even a lucky shot from Jake could create viral headlines that overshadow Joshua's entire career narrative. This is why some experts insist that this matchup paradoxically traps Joshua as much as Jake, forcing him into a high-stakes situation with minimal reward and tremendous image-based risk. The fight may look simple on paper, but reputational pressure makes